Gut, sehr geehrte
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of Wienerberger, on behalf of our team and my colleague Willy van Riet, I'd like to welcome you cordially on the occasion of the press conference presenting the results for 2014. We published an ad hoc disclosure already last week, so you are already aware of the essentials. Today we're going to walk you through the results of 2014 and will then be available to take your questions. 2014 was a good year. Wienerberger generated record revenues of more than 2.8 billion euros, plus 6% compared with the previous year. Operating EBITDA increased by 19% to 317 million. So Wienerberger is back on a growth path, organic growth mainly. Willy van Riet will tell you more about that. As regards the individual divisions, in the brick segment, we report a significant increase in earnings, although we are operating in a stable and even in some regions in a declining market in Europe. The earnings increase is mainly due to cost measures taken in recent years, as well as optimization measures and a new product mix, which also made an essential contribution to our earnings. As regards pipes and pavers, Europe, we already said in 2014 that international business of Pipelife declined, so we did report a slight earnings decline, but that was compensated by earnings growth at Semmelrock and Steinzeug in 2014. In North America, we were operating in a dynamic market environment with significant increases in new housing starts, and we report a substantial volume growth in North America. We have also gained additional market shares, but in a rather tense price environment. As regards the highlights, in 2014, they're as follows. You will remember that we launched a second restructuring program with a cost-saving potential of 50 million. This program was successfully completed in 2014. 17 million out of total savings potential of 50 million were realized in 2014, so the program was successfully completed. A second strategic milestone was the takeover of the controlling majority in Tondach. You will remember that we already held 50% in Tondach, Kleinstetten, and in 2014 the families exited from the company and we took over the majority. This is important for us because it gives us additional access to the roof tile market in Central and Eastern Europe and also in Southeastern Europe, Macedonia, Serbia, Croatia. Tondach holds significant market shares there, and we've been gaining access to the renovation market in Central and Eastern Europe, which is very important, particularly in the roof tile segment. You will remember that in recent years we succeeded in building a strong market position in clay roof tiles, and now we can operate in the entire European market. Tondach was fully consolidated from July 2014 onwards. The contribution of Tondach is 90 million in revenues and 50 million in EBITDA. That is the contribution of Tondach. Another important point regarding the financing structure of the group as a whole, we have succeeded in converting the hybrid bond. You will remember that we issued a hybrid bond in 2007, and we have now been able to exchange that in the amount of 270 million for a new hybrid bond with a longer maturity and more favorable coupons. The new credit line on very favorable conditions amounts to 400 million again, and Mr. van Riet will tell you more about that. So we do indeed have a good and strong financing profile for Wienerberger. When you look at 2014 as a whole, it's good to see that despite the takeover of Tondach, we've succeeded in reducing our net debt to operating EBITDA ratio to 1.9 years. The fourth quarter of 2014 was a good period for Wienerberger. The year as a whole was characterized by variations. We had a very good second quarter, a weak third quarter, and a very good fourth quarter. Revenue increase plus 9%, operating EBITDA up by 23% in all product groups in Europe, including the contribution from Tondach, and a slight earnings increase in pipes and pavers because Pipelife made a good contribution during the fourth quarter. And another thing that is important to note, housing construction, residential construction, increased in North America in the fourth quarter, and we were able to increase our volumes by a double-digit figure. We also had non-recurring impairment charges in the amount of more than 200 million. Total impairment charges were 208 million. This is an impairment which is a non-cash impairment charge. It has an impact on the balance sheet but not on our liquidity. And it refers to investments and takeovers before 2009. That was a period when companies were taken over in Italy, in North America, and in Germany. Now, given the new market parameters, we had to book impairment charges, which are as follows: impairment of assets, that is a plant, property, and equipment, in the amount of 100 million, and a goodwill impairment, slightly higher, particularly in North America. These non-recurring impairment charges, of course, affect our after-tax result, which is negative at 170 million. But in operational terms, without these non-recurring impairment charges, even after the hybrid bond, we would have achieved a positive result. We have generated a strong free cash flow, up by more than 130 million in 2014, and on that basis we will be proposing to the annual general meeting an increase in our dividend to 0.15 cent per share. That is plus 25% compared was the previous year. And as regards our dividend policy for the future, we as a managing board commit ourselves not only to paying out a dividend in the future, but to relate that dividend to our free cash flow, because a company needs to generate free cash flow in order to pay out a dividend. This is our firm conviction. So depending on the free cash flow, depending on our liquidity planning, we take it that we will be able to pay out between 10 and 30% of our free cash flow. For 2014, 15 cents per share translates into approximately 20% of our free cash flow. Here is an overview of our figures. Revenue, 2.8 billion. Operating EBITDA, 317 million. That is a healthy increase from 266 the year before. Our net debt slightly up from the previous year because of the takeover of Tonbach, but if you relate that to EBITDA, a strong improvement as regards the EBITDA to net debt ratio. Total investments, somewhat higher, up to 163 million because of the takeover of the Tonbach Group and some investments made in the field of product development, improvement, etc. in the United Kingdom. In particular, plants were started up again to meet the higher demand. A very quick overview, although we discussed it already in detail. Our impairment charges are limited to the following to two markets, the United States and Germany. Our assumptions regarding market developments and sustainable developments in housing construction. Now, our assumption is unchanged at 1.5 million housing starts, and we expect an EBITDA of about 60 million with our organization and our plants. And this is being confirmed by the revised forecasts for housing starts in the United States. The development is expected to be somewhat slower than originally forecast, and that resulted in goodwill impairment in the amount of 85 million and impairment to assets in the amount of 15 million. In addition, we were also taking measures in our operating business, which are aimed at strengthening sales and production organization in the United States. In Germany, the housing market, as far as single-family and multifamily houses are concerned, developments are weaker than originally expected. Housing construction focuses more on multi-story buildings in the cities, which means that the volume of bricks required is lower, so we had to review our assessment of the German market. Moreover, the profitability level of our operations in Germany is significantly lower than that of other regions, so we had to make certain adjustments and book impairments on our balance sheet. And adjustments will be made in productions and in the overhead structure in Germany in order to improve the earning strength of the company. Italy, as you know, is suffering strongly from the crisis, a decline in new housing starts by more than 10%, and we expect a continuation of that drastic decline. That means that the demand for building materials is lower. The brick sector is affected significantly because the share of bricks in Italy is between 70 and 80% in housing construction, which is much higher than in the rest of Europe. So for us, Italy is an interesting market also for the future. Wienerberger will remain in Italy, particularly in northern Italy, and we have taken the necessary measures as regards renewal of our product mix, and we have made the necessary value adjustments in the amount of over 40 million euros. Other impairment charges total 30 million, mostly in Russia, and operations that had exported a lot to Russia, like Estonia. France is also a difficult market because public investments are declining significantly, and this, of course, affects the operations of Pipelife in France. We have adjusted Wienerberger's portfolio in these markets accordingly. When we look at the details of the results in the individual segments, clay building materials, Europe, with revenues of 1.5 billion and results of more than 220 million. EBITDA, this is our biggest division. Pipes and pavers, Europe, 1 billion revenues, 100 million contribution to the results. North America, 230 million, 11 million contribution to the results. The results of the group as a whole are shown here, broken down by product. We have a balanced portfolio between individual products and markets, bricks, pipes, roof tiles, and also in terms of our results, the situation is balanced. This already reflects the contribution of Tondach. So we are expanding our roof segment, which already accounts for 33% of our results. Our targets, as communicated in 2011 and 2012, have been reached. That is, having a more balanced portfolio, being resilient in times of crisis, and even in markets that are stable or slightly declining, we want to grow, if only slightly. Ladies and gentlemen, I too would like to welcome you most cordially. Organic volume growth, organic growth of Wienerberger has already been mentioned. Now, what have we done? We have increased our revenues by 6%. 3% is accounted for by organic volume growth, despite difficult markets in Europe. In certain markets, there's been a recovery, such as the United Kingdom, but there are other markets in which substantial decreases were reported, like Italy, France, Germany. In Eastern Europe, we haven't always had a favorable market environment. Nevertheless, we achieved an organic volume increase by 3%. Despite such headwind, we were able to increase our prices by 1%, eliminating cost inflation. We used to have a cost inflation of 1.5%. Now we have a 1% price increase to compensate for that. The FX effect is minus 1%. This is really a conversion effect. When a currency devalues or is weaker, we record a loss when this is converted into euros. But it's only a conversion effect, a currency translation effect, because we are operating in the local currency of the country, so it has no cash effect. The 6% revenue increase is 3% organic volume increase and 3% from the takeover of Tondach Kleinstetten in the second half. As I said, a slight increase in average prices. In clay building materials, that is the brick and roof tile segment in Europe, we've succeeded in increasing prices above the level of the cost inflation, thanks to dynamic growth in the United Kingdom and in other markets, Belgium, for example, and smaller markets, despite market declines in important markets like France and the Netherlands and the persistent trouble in the Italian market. In Eastern Europe, we have a challenging market environment, nevertheless, a slight increase in average prices, not only through price increases, but also through changes in our product mix. We have shifted towards higher value products, which means higher prices. That, too, is an organic contribution to our revenue increase and to the improvement of our results. In North America, we felt price pressure in the market. We hadn't expected that. Nevertheless, there was such price pressure, and despite the volume increase in North America, our average prices were lower. Not by much, but still. Nevertheless, it is an environment where we had expected a different development. We had expected prices to increase. In pipe life, we are confronted with highly volatile raw material prices. You know what happened to the oil price, and the PVC price is not related to the oil price on a one-to-one basis. So this is a volatility we have to live with. This is part of our day-to-day business. So we have to adjust our prices continuously and have to be very vigilant there. The income statement for 2014, revenues up by 6%. 2.8 billion, the highest revenues ever achieved by Wienerberger, operating EBITDA at 317 million compared with 266 in 2013, plus 19%. Well, we had a very strong performance. Without the 15 million contribution by Tondach, we would have an organic increase by 13% compared with a 3% increase in organic volume. So this is the effect of cost savings, improved capacity utilization. So in operating terms, we simply performed much better in 2014 than in 2013. Depreciation, 217 million. The increase is due to Tondach, which was consolidated as of the 1st of July, which gives us an operating EBIT of 100 million compared with 55 million in 2013. Then impairment charges to assets and goodwill impairment. As you will remember, last year we had a small non-recurrent positive result. We were able to release provisions for an antitrust penalty. Through these impairment charges and the non-recurring goodwill impairment, we have a negative EBIT of 107 million compared with plus 64 the year before. Our financial result is better, minus 50 million compared with minus 67 million the year before. This reflects our participation in Tondach, which was valued upward in the first half of the year, and we were better at our cash management, and our interest management was better because the environment was appropriate for that. So we have a profit before tax of minus 157 million. In certain countries, we're still paying tax, unfortunately, because we're profitable there. So this gives us a profit after tax of 170 million. But when we consider, this is mostly due to the non-recurring impairment charges. If we hadn't had these, even after the hybrid coupon, we would still have a net result. Sale of non-operating assets. As you know, we said that by 2016 we want to sell 100 million of non-operating assets. Those are plants that were closed down, non-operating real estate. So we had a cash inflow of 14.3 million and an EBITDA contribution of 8.4 million. So we have already generated 36 million out of the 100 million. So we are confident that we can realize another 64 million to reach the 100 million target. We have a lot in the pipeline, but as I said already, this is not something we need. We're not giving away anything. Projects are being delayed, and we won't allow to be put under pressure because we don't need to do that, and we have a few things in the pipeline. So we are fully on target there. Cash flow development, that's very important. I keep pointing out that cash flow is the most important thing for a company. The gross cash flow up by 60 million plus 37%. Up to 225 million, a working capital, an outflow of 10 million. This is entirely due to the increased revenue. You have to produce more stocks in order to be able to sell more. Those are the 10%. Normal capex 121 million, divestments 36 million. So we have a free cash flow of 130.6 million compared with 92 million the year before. 18 million growth capex. That means 2 projects. I will come back to those later. And we paid out the dividend and the hybrid coupon, 57.3 million. So the net cash flow that remains is 55 million. That is an increase compared with the previous year, despite growth investments, despite a higher dividend. So the dividend increase by 25% to 0.15 cent has already been mentioned. Total investments, 121 million normal capex, mostly in clay building materials. That corresponds to 60% of depreciation in 2014. And 41 million growth capex, including 2 major projects. Pipelife in the United States, we expanded, we almost doubled our capacity there. There was considerable demand because we were not able to produce enough products there. So we solved this problem by spending 5.6 million, and the acquisition of Tondach Kleinstetten cost us 35.7 million. 12.5 million were paid cash, 23 million were paid through the exchange of Wienerberger shares against Tondach shares. So total investments amounted to 163 million spent in cash or Wienerberger shares. at the beginning of the year, we said that we would only spend 130 million. Certain projects were postponed to the next year, to 2015. We have a strong balance sheet. Wienerberger has a strong balance sheet. 622 million net debt at the end of the year, which is entirely due to the takeover of the debt of Tondach. We not only paid for Tondach, we also took over Tondach debt. But thanks to our strong cash flow, we still have an equity ratio of 52%, and despite the impairments which we had to book. Before I conclude, our treasury ratios, these are important for our financial position. Net debt to operating EBITDA has been going down continuously from 2.2 years in 2012 to 1.9 years in 2014, and the operating EBITDA to interest result, we are now at 5.8 times. We were at 5 times in 2012, which means that our position, the position of the group, is getting stronger and stronger. Our target is a maximum of net debt to operating EBITDA ratio of less than 2.5 at year end. So we are well below the covenant, which is 3.75. We are way below the covenants. So let me summarize. We generated record revenues of 2.8 billion. Our EBITDA goal had been 300 million for 2014. We've exceeded that target and report 317 million. We have a strong free cash flow. Wienerberger's business is strong in cash flow. We had to cope with cash impairment charges of 208 million. That results in a loss after tax of 170 million. Our restructuring program was successfully completed. Of course, we will still aim for further cost savings, but we think that this is part of our day-to-day business. You don't need to have a grand program for that. This is something you simply have to do. And our dividend proposal for the AGM this year is 0.15% per share.
Ladies and gentlemen, permit me to briefly talk about the outlook for 2015 as we at Wienerberger see it in terms of housing starts and the renovation market, and also our assessment of profitability for the current year. Here you can see a map of the countries where Wienerberger is present. It looks better than it did last year because the picture in Europe is not unanimous, or it varies greatly. In Great Britain, in the United Kingdom, there will be a reorientation in the course of the year as a result of elections, but we expect that there will be an increase, a 7% increase in housing starts this year. Next year, we will see what the position of the new government is. As regards the economic parameters, we expect further growth in the UK market. On the continent, as we saw in the last quarter of 2014, the Dutch market has reached the worst level after the Second World War. Now we see slight growth rates starting from a very low level. There's a 5% growth rate. Belgium we expect stable development. France will be negative once again. So we expect a further decline from an already low level in 2014. However, this decline will not be as dramatic as it was last year. Switzerland and Italy show a decline. Italy a stronger decrease, but again, not as dramatic as it was last year. In Switzerland, this may be a surprise because Switzerland was stable in recent years, now shows some decrease. In Austria and Germany, developments are very similar, a slight decrease in the area of 1 and 2 family homes. There's less construction activities in rural areas or in suburban areas. There's more building activity in the urban areas. In Eastern Europe, ladies and gentlemen, the situation has improved over the previous year. You will remember that these countries were red last year. Now in Romania, in Hungary, and also in the Czech Republic, we see slight growth rates. Poland should also show a better development in the course of the year. And basically, the scenario is positive. Regarding Russia and Finland, you can see that both are shown in red colors. Russia will continue to show an uncertain picture. Last year we had very satisfactory growth rates regarding our shipments there. This year we don't know what developments are going to be like, so this country is shown in red. Finland is a small market, and it will show a slight decline. The other Scandinavian markets, Norway and Sweden, are positive and stable. So these are two very important markets for the pipe segment. And as I've already pointed out, in North America we will have a plus of 9%. This is a high growth rate. Let's not underestimate this. And our markets in North America will grow or continue to grow next year. The renovation market, very important for the roof segment. Almost 60% of our revenues are accounted for by renovation. There's a slight growth in the United Kingdom, Poland, the Czech Republic and Hungary. Higher growth rates in Italy, and the remainder of Europe shows a fairly stable development. Again, this shows that Wienerberger is right in focusing on this market. Now let's take a look at the individual segments. We can see that there's a stable market development, slightly positive development in some countries. In the brick segment, as a result of housing construction, we expect a moderate volume growth for the current year and price increases in line with cost inflation. Although we find that cost inflation is lower in Europe, about 1.5%, we need to have a 1% price increase to compensate for that. The optimization measures mentioned by Willy van Riet are continuing. They will bring improvements and will improve and enhance our profits. Also, there are changes in the product portfolio. The thermal bricks have gained ground in Austria, in Germany, in the Czech Republic, and this will contribute to our profit. And also there will be a consolidation effect of Tondach, which will amount to almost 70 million. So this should lead to significant revenue and earnings increase in Europe. Regarding pipes and pavers, again we expect a flat development in the Nordic markets. I've mentioned Finland, Norway, slight growth rates in Sweden. So here we have good performance. We could gain market shares last year with our new products. Regarding currencies, of course, there's the problem of the Norwegian and the Swedish crown and the relation to the euro. Then we have the international project business, which mostly stems from our activities in the Netherlands and Norway. Here we should be seeing improvements. We've already seen start last year, and also the optimization measures in France and the Netherlands will contribute to a slight improvement for pipeline Steinzeug and Semmelrock. In their respective areas, wastewater, pavers will show growth rates, and also the product mix and improvements will contribute. So here we expect a slight earnings increase. In North America, owing to the positive market environment, we expect a positive demand for our products. As a result of competition, of course, the price environment will remain a challenge in some regional markets, but we expect a positive development. When it comes to plastic pipes, we have invested in capacities, and we hope that this will contribute to an increase of our earnings. So altogether, the outlook for the Wienerberger Group means that Group EBITDA will amount to 350 million. This includes Tondach's contribution. When it comes to real estate, we have actually seen an EBITDA contribution in the amount of 10 million, which is included in the 350 million. As already mentioned, this means that we will be able to increase prices by 1% in order to compensate for the 1.5% cost inflation. Regarding depreciation, we expect an amount of 220 million, interest result 50 million, working capital. Here, in recent years, we could stabilize working capital at 20%, and this is not going to change. Normal capex, that is investments into production sites and also into product improvements, innovation, research and development, and new startups of production capacities will amount to 140 million. So we believe that we will be able to continue successful growth also in 2015. And as I've already indicated, Wienerberger has been restructured and it is geared towards a successful growth course. Thank you very much for your attention. And of course, Willy and myself are available for questions. Thank you very much. And please make sure to use a microphone so that your questions can be translated. The microphone, unfortunately, isn't switched on. Please switch on the microphone. Sorry, your interpreters cannot hear you. Do you have any further reserves, real estate, for instance, or provisions that you could use if necessary? Well, my colleague will be able to give you the details. Basically, I would say we live in a highly regulated environment regarding valuations, assessments. So we need continuous assessments, valuations. We need to adjust those to interest rates, to the market environment. So my general answer would be, this is something the management board has to do. It's not a finished process. It's an ongoing process. Basically, we expect that Wienerberger is well positioned in terms of costs for the markets. May I add something? I'm one of the older financial experts, if I may say so. Well, things are highly volatile. We have a market-to-market valuation. When we talk about new interest rates with Russia, this will be immediately reflected in the impairment test. These are things which are beyond our control, but we cannot exclude them. You've mentioned real estate. We have 100 million that we wish to gain, and about 50% of that will contribute to our earnings. We have additional real estate, but as any good merchant, we need to wait for the right moment. Let me come back to your question. You've seen that business in Italy is something that we have more or less written off. However, if the situation in Italy improves, this will be reflected in our balance sheet in the future. As my colleague pointed out, we are confronted with a more volatile market environment and more regulations. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, it will become increasingly important to consider cash flow, free cash flow, and not just the balance sheet. This is my message. A follow-up question regarding Russia. You didn't mention any figures when you spoke about the outlook. What are your expectations regarding Russia? What about the weak ruble? Is that included in the 30 million impairment? And, well, you said you cannot exclude certain developments, but what is the goodwill in Russia? This is my first question. Another question. You have 208 or 204 plants. Are there any mothballed plants? And if so, how many? Well, in Russia, of course, the ruble plays a very important role. We don't have any goodwill in Russia anymore. We only have assets there, and there has been a devaluation. We expect that this is enough. But we need to wait and see. 2014 was still a good year for us in Russia. And we expect that the market will sort of cool down, but we have to see what happens. The season hasn't yet started. So we really cannot say anything about market developments there. To come back to your question regarding the market, the Russian market, of course, is highly diversified. There are enormous differences between St. Petersburg and Vladivostok, where we are active. We expect a slight market decline. If I say a slight market decline, it means less than 10%, a one-digit decrease. But as I pointed out, we have not included war scenarios. For instance, this is not possible. But we expect that we are well positioned in this market. You mentioned that you only have assets in Russia. Could you give us any figures? Well, this is variable. We have 2% of the group revenues come from Russia. So this shows the strength of the Wienerberger Group. We are highly diversified in different markets, and you know that different markets go through different cycles. Let me come back to the plants. We have about 10 plants that have been mothballed, primarily in the brick segment. Your question regarding plants, yes, we have 208 operating plants. What about capacity utilization of plants last year? And what about new markets? A few years ago, I remember, North Africa was an idea which probably has not been implemented. Are there any ideas regarding further expansion, or are you planning to optimize ongoing and running plans? As regards capacity utilization, again, there are differences from region to region, but it's between 62 and 65% in the brick segment. Capacity utilization is not so relevant for pipes. It has gone up to some extent. And for this year, we plan a capacity utilization of approximately 65% in the brick segment. Regarding regional developments, we are satisfied with the regional presence today. We are strongly focused on the European Union, on North America. We want to use our presence to become even stronger in those markets. So priorities 1, 2, and 3 are to increase our market share in the regions where we are represented. We do a lot in research and development. Our company has become an innovative, high-tech company and not a company that is primarily focused on expansion and spending money. We've given up these highfalutin plans in the early years of 2000. So, as my colleague pointed out, we want to promote organic growth. This is what matters today. And don't forget, in recent years, we have been able to make successful acquisitions, Pipelife, Steinzeug, and also Tondach. These were significant growth steps in the regions where we as Wienerberger want to be represented. There was another question. I have two questions. In 2014, you concluded your restructuring program successfully, as you pointed out. Now, is this finished, or are there any further strategic considerations? No further strategic considerations regarding restructuring. We have finished the measures that started in 2012. In the operating business, of course, there will always be adjustments, but this is not going to mean that we need to report any special developments. When looking at the income statement, I noticed that taxes increased almost threefold. How come? Well, as I said, in some countries, well, we are active in a number of different countries with different tax systems, and taxation is not on a consolidated level. It is per country. And in certain countries, of course, we have profits, so we pay taxes. In Norway, for instance, we are very successful and we pay taxes there. We are successful in Belgium and we pay taxes in Belgium. And I cannot deduct taxes that we pay in Norway against the losses that we have in Italy. This is not possible. Another question. You said that you want to increase your presence in the renovation sector. What are your plans regarding acquisitions? We're not talking about acquisitions or takeovers. Rather, as I've indicated, we want to grow on the basis of our own strength. In the roof sector, for instance, Tondach provides an opportunity for growth. Also, we will be able to grow in those areas where we are already present. So when we talk about growth through acquisitions, there will always be opportunities in the future to take small or medium-sized steps. This is something that we look at continuously. However, there must be clear criteria. I also mentioned that CFRI 11.5 is very important. And in all the acquisitions, we are clearly above the 11.5% CFROI, and this will continue to remain so in the future. Regarding the German market, what are your savings plans there? Well, as regards the focus of our company, we emphasize high-value products, perlite-filled bricks, for instance, or mineral wool-filled bricks. We will also focus on accessories. So these are measures regarding production, sales, additional investments will flow into Germany to strengthen our portfolio. So we're not talking about reducing the number of staff or closing down plants. Rather, we will focus on the German market, the high-value market, and withdrawal from the commodity segment, as we've done successfully in Western Europe. What about the net result developments in the fourth quarter? Net results in the fourth quarter, very poor because of the impairments. Could you give us a few figures? Well, I wouldn't have them here. I already mentioned that operating results in the fourth quarter were positive, and we showed an increase over last year. But all the impairments, of course, were done in the fourth quarter, and this explains the negative result. But as I've already mentioned, we had a 23% increase in EBITDA. So it was a very strong, actually. Maybe I missed something. Will you become profitable in 2015? How optimistic are you? Well, in terms of operating results, we have been profitable in 2014. This is my basic message. And I confirm that we are going to reach this result in 2015 as well. I'm not going to comment on valuation. This is a technical issue. We carry out our valuations regularly in line with rules and regulations, but this depends on factors that I cannot assess. But in terms of operating results, I can tell you that we will reach a positive result once again.
In your sector, can growth be generated in terms of qualitative growth? Is it possible to sell higher value products, premium products to your customers? Well, I think we've been showing in recent years that we succeed continuously in generating growth by 1, 2, 3, or 4%, depending on the market. And this is thanks to our new premium products, and that gives us the strength to grow. Well, most of us are Austrian nationals, except for my colleague Willy van Riet. We have generated strong growth rates in Austria in a flat market environment. Single and two-family homes are not booming in Austria. Nevertheless, we've been gaining market shares. You will remember our new advertising campaign, our new marketing slogan. We are not a business that communicates single success stories like one high-rise building or a couple of single-family homes. We try to communicate to the final customer because these are the people who live in brick buildings, and we want to be able to show that we can deliver on our promises. Our brick buildings, brick homes generate more energy than they consume, so they're active houses, and the more we advance along these lines, the better we will succeed in the market. One thing is still lacking, that is the use of our brick products in multi-storage buildings, and we're working on that. I'm not talking about high-rise buildings, but 5 to 9 story buildings. That is the core segment of residential construction in urban areas, and here we hope to achieve considerable growth rates with our infill bricks. I am confident that we can achieve higher growth. So, we'd like to thank you very much for your attendance, and we hope to see you again at our mid-year press conference. Everything clear? Well, if there are any further questions, you have a chance to put them personally to our managing board members. Thank you very much.